All right, everybody, welcome to the August 2025 housing market update. This market is changing, it's shifting. We're going to talk about it. Let's check it out right now. So if you just do a Google search and you put in housing market news in Google, these are the things that are going to come up. Nashville's housing market remains steady despite changes elsewhere. That's one of the key concepts I'm going to talk about today. Look at this one by Fast Company. Housing market shift. This map shows where home sellers are cutting prices. We're also going to talk about that concept today. Florida housing market makes surprising shift. So you're hearing about shifts in the housing market, and there's no question that it's happening, but it's a good thing. All right, so let's check out the next thing I have set up for you here, which is this. I found this to be very interesting. When you take a look at on the aggregate throughout the whole country, the percentage of listings that had a price decrease during the month of June, and it goes all the way back to 2018, where it was 18%. Then in 2019, it climbed to 20%. Then pandemic hits, drops 14%, 11% at its lowest in 2021. Now it started climbing again in 22, 17%, June of 23, 19, so on and so forth. But what you can see is that now we're at a level where there are more price reductions taking place than there were before the pandemic. So it's a signal, right? It's a signal of what's happening. People have no choice but to become a little bit more realistic with price. And that's a good thing for buyers. Means that things are staying out there a little bit longer on the housing market. The next thing, we saw a headline about Nashville, right? Holding steady among regional declines. So here's a chart here that shows kind of how the values in the southeastern portion of the United States is changing. Nashville is basically even from on a year-over-year basis in terms of the pricing of homes. Okay. But you take a look at Atlanta, Tampa, and Austin, those are actually decreasing at a pretty good clip. 5.9%, 6% decrease is a pretty big deal in a time period where we haven't seen any price decreases take place. So clearly things are shifting there. There's no question about that. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is a slide deck by the National Association of Realtors. The NAR puts together this slide deck. Anybody can search NAR housing market statistics, and you can drill down and find all sorts of information. But this gives you some perspective. I've been saying now for months that we're in a low transaction environment. When people ask me, hey, Jeff, how's the housing market going? I said, well, it's a tale of two stories, really. You have the national tale as to what's going on, and then you have the local tale, right? And depending on where you are, the local tale is different, right? So on the aggregate, look at the number of transactions, the slide that has taken place, right? This peak of 6.4 million homes was at the end of 2021. Okay, so things really started to slide after that. And now we're kind of like bouncing around at the bottom, And to me, like this number of 3.9 million, 4 million-ish is probably like the baseline for the US housing market at this point in time. That's basically the 5 Ds of real estate, pushing things along: diamonds, divorce, diapers, downsizing, and death, right? Those 5 things just always create a natural amount of transactions that are happening. So that's really what you're seeing right now. So in order for things to become a little bit more stable for buyers and sellers and all those service professionals that work around the real estate housing market, this needs to really get back up, over the 5.5 mark, maybe towards 6 million. That's really more of a healthy market. Here's a look at price, what's happened since 2021. You can see there's seasonal fluctuations throughout each year as the years go on, but it has been a steady increase. We're not really seeing a national trend of price decrease, but you are seeing it in local levels, okay, as you go through these different localities. I would even give the comparison on a local basis. We're going to take a look at some local stats in just a second, but even when you look at the difference between Vernon, New Jersey, and Warwick, New York, which are only separated by the state line of New York and New Jersey, they're literally connected. But they're two totally different markets, and two totally different things are taking place in those markets. So you know, the answer to the question, how's the housing market doing, really comes down to, well, where are you located and what market are you really in? Are you looking on the high end? Are you looking for an entry level place, so on and so forth? And that's why real estate agents are so important, right? Because we know what's going on in all of our locales. We're the local experts, and we guide our clients to the best of our ability and help them make great decisions. The last thing I want to show is just what's going on here locally. We'll take a look at, this is an aggregate of Orange County, New York, and Sussex County, New Jersey. So, you know, two different states, two different things. It's a pretty good data sampling because, you know, we're about 50 miles northwest as the bird flies from Manhattan. So we have a lot of commuter. It's an interesting segment of the housing market data in the United States. And what you can see here is, you know, the red dots are this year and this light gray blue is last year. So you can see there's really not much change, if any at all. It's kind of flat versus where we were last year. And as a reminder, so 2024 had the least amount of house sale transactions since 1995 in the United States of America. So it was a tough market, and it still is. And I really don't see this thing coming around and making a major change soon. I think interest rates really need to settle down below the 6 mark, high fives, for this thing to get cooking again. But what will happen is over time, the 5Ds will do their thing as they always do. And you will find that people are just going to start to put their houses on the market because they can't postpone any longer the upsize or the downsize, whatever they're looking to do. That was new listings, okay? And units sold is very similar trend. You know, you see there's not much variance between the red and the gray and the light blue. And same thing here, you know, I would argue that it's a little bit down from where it was last year in terms of the units sold, okay? So I guess it's a good thing and a sign, although it's small, we're seeing a little bit more listing action, you know, in 2025 than we saw in 2024, a little bit. At least we're not below every month, so that's a good thing. But the units sold is still struggling to, you know, get pace and keep rocking and rolling. So again, like I say every month, you know, my hat is off to all of the sales professionals out there that are having banner years. And a lot of our agents here at Better Homes and Gardens Green Team are having banner years, and it's a testament to how good you are at what you do. So congratulations to everybody that's knocking the ball out of the park. Good for you. Average sale price, you can see it's been very consistently increasing since 2019. 22 and 23, you can see it kind of slowed down there a little bit, but it really has kept pace with increasing. You can see there's variance between each month of 24 and 25. So prices are not necessarily coming down. And one of the things that, if you go back and read some of those articles that I showed you earlier, one of the things that you'll see that's a constant theme is that it's just easier to build homes outside of the Northeast because of zoning restrictions. There's basically tight zoning laws in place in most of the Northeastern states. So there's just not a lot of new inventory coming online for the Northeast territories. So that's why things kind of tend to move a little bit slower in either direction in the Northeast. It's a little bit more of a stable market, and it's just going to be harder and harder as time goes on. And, you know, we experience population increase for the next 10 years here to get those homes. I mean, you know, we were talking before this housing market update here in the Ringwood office that when is this thing going to change? My buyers can't find homes. When is it going to loosen up? And the answer is it's going to take time. Okay, one last thing to look at is the days on market. You can still see it's fierce. You know, I mean, it's, you know, 30, everything below 30 days on market, you know, 60 days, that kind of thing is a pretty hot market. We haven't been above 60 days in years, basically. And you can see back in 2019 and 2020, you know, days on market was above 75 days on average. And we've been, you know, hanging out around 30 days or around that average for quite some time. But, you know, again, you can see down here, it's a little bit higher than it was in the past. So sold to ask ratio, this is interesting because it tells you at what percentage of the list price are homes selling for on the aggregate. And you can see that this is kind of cooling off a little bit too. There's not as many bidding wars, not as many homes going for over asking. But the fact that, on average, it's over 100% every single month of the year is pretty remarkable. I mean, that's just not normal. And again, I always try to look back to 2019 as kind of like a good baseline year where things will get back to. So, things were negotiable back then. You could put an offer in and expect to get a counter offer from a seller. That's what a normal market looks like, but we're just not there right now. You can see on average, it's above 100%. So that's not really cooling off. So, the takeaway is it's changing, it's slowly evolving. You got to keep your eyes and ears open as to what's going on. You got to take a look at comparables. You have to, be smart about where things are going. I don't think there's any, it's my prediction that we're not going to see any major collapse in the housing market. I just don't see that happening. But we are going to grind along here for probably another couple years before this thing gets back to normal numbers like you're seeing in 2019. Okay, so with that, let's check in with my big sis, Amy Green from Quintessential Mortgage, and talk a little bit about mortgages. Amy?
Good morning, everyone. Again, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. So, on average, last meeting, it was 6.81 for the 30-year fixed. As of business close yesterday, 6.58. So, yes, they've ticked down, which is
That's good
great
movement.
news. But anyway, really quick, 30-year jumbo, still in the high sixes. FHA, low sixes. VA, low sixes. 15-year fix is floating in the high fives. Not a lot of people can afford a 15-year fix, though. So, good news yesterday, CPI inflation report was very close to expectations, which is great news. And with that, I'm going to show you my chart here. So, just looking at a monthly difference, last month 6.81, now it's around 6.58. If you look at the principal and interest on that, it's a downward difference of $53 a month. So that's great news in my opinion. I think rates are trending in the right direction. I think the only holdout right now is the tariffs and the uncertainty surrounding them. But this is basically what happened over the past month. Here was where we were last month, and here's where we are right now.
All right, that's good improvement. Hopefully it holds and continues to improve on the downward side. All right, Amy, thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks, Amy.